Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Steve Shoney. I'm the Development Director for the City of Columbus. I want to thank you all for coming out to this very exciting start of the next step in bringing back one of the great historic buildings on the Near East Side of Columbus. I want to start off before I introduce the mayor by thanking a few key groups personally from myself. Number one is my own team. John Turner and his team with the Land Redevelopment Office for the city. They do an amazing job of going through buildings that people have given up hope on and turning them into something that we can then bring in partners to make great again. And I think this is going to be a great example of that. The other partners that I need to recognize, that I know the mayor and the county commissioner will recognize as well, is our partners at the COSIC, the County Land Bank. They have been with us every step of the way, helping to manage this process, helping to finance this process, and they will be helping us to take it to the next level of transformation. And finally, the Near East Area Commission. We don't do great projects without great neighborhood partners. And we need great neighborhood partners who are here to help guide us, help set our priorities. And they were very clear with us that this building is a priority for the neighborhood, maintaining this piece of our history as a city and this piece of the Near East Side's history. So I want to be sure to thank them. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Mayor Andrew Ginther, our mayor and our great friend of historic preservation.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Director Shoney. I'm excited about today's tour on the Near East Side because it shows the continued development and revitalization of the city's urban core. The properties featured on the tour today include a newly renovated residence and a new 6-unit apartment building. And within the past year, about 25 vacant properties on the Near East Side were sold through the city's land bank. Right now, we are standing right in front of a piece of great history, proud history of this dynamic neighborhood that makes our city so special, the former Franklin Park Medical Center. Built in 1962 with its distinctive Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, it was the first of its kind in Columbus. 5 African-American medical professionals opened the office at a time when medical services were completely segregated. I want to acknowledge Lenore Thomas, whose father, Dr. Walter A. Thomas, was one of the 5 founders. Thank you for being here today, and thanks for all that your family has done for our city. He practiced obstetrics and gynecology, serving the community for nearly 50 years. That's a lot of babies that he brought into this world, and we're grateful for that. Decades later, the building was in such disrepair, it was considered for demolition. Instead, the city and Franklin County land banks came together to save the building and purchased it through tax foreclosure. Because the building had been vacant for many years, there was extensive water damage and had been used as a drug haven right here in this neighborhood. The land banks cleaned up the building, ensured the stability of the structure, and painted the outside of the building. They are now issuing an RFP for redevelopment of the site. The African American Landmark Preservation Initiative worked with the Columbus Landmarks Foundation to preserve the building. In 2015, the structure was listed on the 2015 Columbus Landmark Foundation list of the most endangered historic buildings. It's been nominated for the National Register of Historic Places. They expect to hear about that decision later this month. I want to give a shout out to Lloyd Clark, who will be speaking in just a couple of minutes. He is family to one of the founders of the medical center and a strong advocate for rehab and reuse of vacant buildings like this one. Thank you for being here and all that you're doing. This was a collaborative project, not just something done by the city or the county. A number of people were important to the building's rehabilitation to this point. I'd like to thank the following: Dr. Tony Smith, Project Manager, African American Landmarks Preservation Institute. Ed Lentz and Andrew Nusling at the Landmarks Foundation. Rory Krupp Owen and Eastlake Architects. They wrote the nomination for the National Register of Historic Places and have been retained by the Columbus Foundation. Rita Smith, President, James Preston Poindexter Foundation. Julianne Walker from the James Preston Poindexter Foundation and a Columbus Foundation board member. This is such a proud moment for our great city, and we would not be here today without the great partnership of the Franklin County, our treasurer Ed Leonard, but especially the leadership of our commissioners. It's now my pleasure to introduce the president of the Board of Commissioners, Commissioner John OGrady.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Happy to be here today. As usual, the mayor stole all my thunder, used all my remarks, said everything I was going to say in a much more lengthy fashion than I would have. That being said, I will. There are a couple things, though, that I'd like to talk about as it relates to this particular project. The partnership between the city's land bank and the county's land bank is truly what's made this happen. It's what's allowed us to tear down over 2,000 units of vacant and abandoned housing together in Central Ohio over the last few years. But also, it's not just about demolition and tearing things down. It's about partnering on projects like this and bringing back structures and bringing back facilities that are important to the community. Too many times we see vacant and abandoned houses. You get one here and then one there. The next thing you know, you go from one vacant and abandoned house to one vacant and abandoned street to one vacant and abandoned neighborhood. And we see it over and over again throughout the country. And so the city's land bank and the county's land bank have come together to partner to try to ensure that we don't see that here in Columbus and in Central Ohio. So we are very proud of the work that our land bank and the city's land bank have done together on behalf of the community. And we are ecstatic to be able to see a project like this help a distressed neighborhood back to revitalization. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. And this is a I can't wait to see the facility. And I think Councilwoman Page, I didn't have an agenda, sorry. Councilwoman Page is here, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Sorry. And again, I just echo the sentiments of Mayor Ginther as well as Commissioner O'Grady. I am so excited to be here, excited to be a part of this land bank tour. I had the opportunity prior to joining council working with, I call it my two Johns, with the city and the county land bank. And we know a lot of the work that it takes to come up with exit strategies for the vacant and abandoned properties throughout our city. And the work and the dedication that you put into it is absolutely appreciated, not only by me, but throughout the city of Columbus. And I really appreciate all that you do and just your love for the city, and to make sure that the properties that have been abandoned, whether it's because of a bankruptcy, a death, a probate case, that you try to revitalize it and strengthen our neighborhoods. And this particular building and the doctors that were here has a personal significance for me. One of the doctors here delivered both my father and my brother. So I am very happy to see this being revitalized and the city recognizing the significance that it has in the African American community here on the Near East Side. And I thank all of the community members who are here and have stood with us and pushed us to make sure that we are keeping this as a historic monument in our community. And I now have the privilege of welcoming Mr. Lloyd Clark to the microphone. Thank you.
This is a good day in the city of Columbus. You know, I stand here on the corner of Moneypenny and Long, and I think of many a day when I used to come in here in my dad's office and I'd hear the babies crying and I couldn't understand how he could just tune them out. I couldn't stay there 5 minutes. But he was known as the whistling doctor because he would give the kids a shot so fast before they knew the pain hit, they already had the shot. And they gave them a lollipop, but let me tell you, I didn't get one at all when he gave me one. But I'm very proud to say this project started for me when I was asked to join the African American Landmark Preservation Initiative. And this was a long-term project that was very interesting. It started with the study of African American migration and settlement into Columbus, Ohio through the Great Migration. And from that, we took different neighborhoods, and we also had a choice of taking a building, which I chose. I was very interested in the founding fathers, the 5 founding fathers of this building. And so I chose the Franklin Park Medical Center. And I learned so much that I didn't know, that my dad was very humble and really didn't mention to me. But to find out the history behind how these doctors couldn't even find a piece of land because they wouldn't sell them any land right here on East Broad Street. And their first choice was on, I believe, Long and Champion. So it ended up here, which was close to the bus lines, and ended up being a great location. But they couldn't even get financing. So there was a guy named C.W. Bryant, Charles Bryant, who sold them this plot of land for $20,000 back in 1961. So they had to get John W.E. Bowen to get the financing from an insurance company in Cincinnati. So from then, I mean, they overcame all kind of obstacles for us to stand here today to even be able to talk about it. But this was the first one-stop center here in Central Ohio where you had a variety of different doctors, physicians that from the pediatrician to a pharmacist that you could order your drugs from, to a psychiatrist, to a dentist. I mean, we had so many doctors besides the founders that were very important to the East Side community. And there's still generations that they took care of that come to me to this day and tell me how proud they were when my dad made house calls. And he did 1 week for 31 years at the Windsor Clinic, giving his free time and donating his time to people who are underprivileged and also underinsured. You go in a doctor's office now, you're going to see a visa, or you better have insurance. So it was a different day back then. It was more concern and care, and this is why this is such a passionate thing for me, because it's so important in our community, not just to preserve this history and the Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, but the men who made this happen. And I urge you to go out to ColumbusLandmarks.org and look at the publications piece. We put out a document back, I believe, a report in December of 2014 that details some of the history of all these settlements, including the Franklin Park Medical Center. But there's a lot more to it. They just had an honoree of African-American physicians and dentists at the King Arts Complex a couple of weeks ago, where they honored all the physicians with 29+ years of experience and dentists. So this is just a small bit, and it's inspiring so much more, and I think we can use this as a model for the entire community. And I want to thank the city land banks, Franklin County land banks, the COSIC, the mayor's office, Coleman's office, for making this happen. And let's use this as a model for future development here in Columbus. Thank you very much.
One thing that stands out in my mind, because of course I knew all of the doctors, and the dentist that was one of the founders is still living. He's 89 years old. He's doing pretty well, and I had hoped he could be here today. But all of them, I think they were just dedicated to their patients and to service. And they would just be amazed probably with what was happening right now. That's what really runs through my mind. They were just doing what they loved, and I don't think any one of them ever really looked for recognition for what they were doing. So it would be quite, it's an honor, but they would be quite surprised, because they were all, I think, humble. And they were just working hard, doing what their passion was, and that was taking care of the patients and the community. So, and the women behind them, the wives, they too, they would be happy because they were a part of it. So thank you.
So that concludes our program here. I think we're going to have the building open for a little bit if folks want to walk through. If you're interested in putting in a bid, see John Turner. We will be getting the formal RFP out over the next few days. And if you want any more information, go to the City of Columbus website, columbus.gov, development, and look for the City Land Redevelopment Office. So thank you very much for coming out, and have a great day. Thanks.
Approximately 9,000. Approximately 9,000 square feet. Yeah, different levels. There's 3 levels. and all levels were used. Left search high and low for these kind of beams so that to mimic the ones that were here. And the material on the roof deck, same thing. So it was important to preserve that for the sake of the community and the sake of those folks who did this initially. So I think what you'll see, I think you'll be impressed with it. So feel free to kind of walk through. If you have any questions, just kind of raise your hand or give me a shout.
Good. 20 plus years?
I think he said like 10 or 15.
10 or 15.
Okay.
It was built in '62, and it's only been about 10 or 15 years we've been thinking. But it's just, and the other thing is, it's helped to, preservation of the building speaks to destroying the myth that the quality buildings didn't exist on the east side.
That's true. That's very true.